Today's video is brought to you by Blazer Raid. Blazer, thank you. Tinybones Trinket Thief versus Unesh, Criosphinx Sovereign, Karametra God of Harvests, and Unesh, Criosphinx Sovereign. That's a pretty fast hand for us, actually. We can get down our commander on turn 1. Do we go for Waste Not on turn 1 instead? Yeah, I'm not sure about that yet. Just a couple of lands from our opponents. We will start things off with Mana Crypt and a Swamp. And I think we'll start things off with Waste Not. We don't actually have a means of having our opponents discard any cards, so we don't benefit from having our commander eat some removal. We'll do some setting up before we have our commander come down. Oh, there's some ramp from Karametra. No green mana from them yet, luckily. But they do get into their own Mana Crypt. And then a Luminous Broodmoth, which will make it really difficult to get their creatures out of play. And I imagine they have a lot of ramp creatures as well, like Wood Elves and Lotus Cobra, things like that. Anyway, looks as though Unesh is just going to hold up 2 mana, which might mean that we get countered. I think we try a Mind Slicer here. If you're going to counter anything, you can counter a Mind Slicer, and then we can always go for Animate Dead and our commander next turn. Yeah, so let's go in for the Mind Slicer. That was allowed to land, surprisingly, so it might be that the other Unesh player doesn't have any counter magic. This Unesh player that is next in the turn order didn't have anything either. They've just tapped out after playing a Buried Ruin. Still no green mana from the Karametra player, but they do swing in, and not at us, surprisingly. Swinging in at the Unesh player to our right. There's no patrons in this game, by the way. Just decided to get a quick test game in because I have been having trouble running Tinybones in multiplayer. So just trying to get a quick one in, and hopefully it is a quick one, but not too likely against a couple of blue Unesh players. This Unesh gets down a Midnight Clock. That gets an hour counter on it at the beginning of each upkeep. And when it has 12 or more on it, you shuffle your hand and graveyard into the library and draw 7. And between now and then, it acts as a mana rock. Not a bad card, actually. Midnight Clock. Anyhow, we get into Jet Medallion, so yeah, let's definitely go in for Jet Medallion. And then why don't we go for No Mercy? Because we still don't have a means of having our opponent discard anything. Maybe we just go for... yeah, maybe we'll just go for a board wipe next turn, depending on what our opponents get down. Take the Mind Slicer in at the Unesh player to our left. Try and get some kind of friendship going with the Karametra player. We'll show them that we don't want to swing in at them and that we are just as worried about the Unesh players. But yeah, if we want to go for Mutilate, that cares about the number of swamps we have. If we want to get rid of that Broodmoth, yeah, we do need to get into another swamp actually. Although we can take out our own Mind Slicer with it. Unesh starting to catch up with us with a Warm Power Stone. I think the Mana Crypt has really helped us to pull ahead in this game. Karametra getting into some green mana and then going in for their Karametra. 5 cards left in hand, so from now on they'll be able to play creatures and continue to ramp and continue to fix their mana. Now the Luminous Broodmoth is going back in at the same Unesh player to our right. And then a 4th counter goes on the Midnight Clock. So it takes them 3 turn cycles to get all the counters on that and draw a fresh grip. Getting into a Thought Vessel for no maximum hand size. Then in for Urza's Incubator, which is a mana rock for Sphinxes in this case. Makes their Sphinxes cost 2 generic less. So they'll easily be able to get their commander out next turn if they want. We will go Tails on the Mana Crypt. And we win this one, luckily. Then we do get into that swamp that we need, so I wonder... Yeah, there's nothing in our opponent's graveyards to reanimate. I think we'll just go in for Tinybones, and then... Yeah, then we'll go in for this board wipe. Might as well get some damage in first. So we'll actually swing in at the Unesh player to our right because they're pulling ahead more. And they're going to draw into a fresh grip even though we've mind sliced them. It's not likely that we're going to get rid of that midnight clock in a black deck. So let's go in for the Mutilate. I'm actually just realising that I shouldn't have gone for the Tinybones before the board wipe, should I? That's a stupid mistake. Had it in my head that Tinybones needed to be in play to see the discard, which, I mean, even then it won't be, will it? Because Mind Slicer has to die to activate the discard. Oh well. Might be that we get into a means of playing our commander out again, but definitely should have waited on that. And this is where Waste Not is going to do a bunch of good stuff for us. Gonna get a load of zombie tokens, a couple of black mana, and we are going to draw 6 cards, that looks like. All based on what our opponent's discarded. Okay, so we get into some lands, a bunch of zombies. That Necrogen Mists is pretty good. We've actually got some mana floating now, thanks to the fact that someone discarded a land. So that allows us to get out our Tinybones again. Just added command attacks to that for no good reason, due to my mistake, but at least we can end the turn and draw a card. Tinybones doesn't care how many cards are discarded, it just cares about someone discarding a card, or your opponent specifically. So we get into Exquisite Blood. A bunch of Sphinxes in the Sphinx player's library, or graveyard. A time reversal, that's good to know about. So we've got a couple of Sphinx players that are playing Time Twister type effects. Obviously knew about the Broodmoth, a couple of board wipes there, good ones as well. Oracle of Muldiah, Shamanic Revelation, so good card draw. And a Mana Drain, wow, I'm surprised they didn't hold that up. Thassa, Sphinx, yep. Yeah, a couple of counter spells there from that Sphinx player. I'm surprised about that. They knew that the mass discard was coming, surely. And speaking of discard, Curator of Mysteries gets discarded with cycling, so we will draw a card at the end of this turn. They're obviously just trying to get into something. And it looks as though they might have gotten into something. Nope, just passing the turn over and tapping out. They've got 1 card in hand, which means if we go for that Necrogen Mists, they will discard that card at the beginning of the turn, which just triggers our commander at the end of theirs, so that will keep us in cards. Now, in for Karametra's turn, they top deck a Growing Rites of Itlimoc, so that might put some cards in their hand as well, ready for us to have them discard them. Oh, that's not something you'd see every day. A Growing Rites of Itlimoc whiffing in a Karametra deck. Yeah, lots and lots of creatures in a Karametra list, so that's unlucky for them. Nothing revealed off of the Growing Rites. Midnight Clock is 1 turn cycle away from shuffling a bunch of stuff. I don't think we can take them out next turn. We didn't get into quite enough zombies. But they can get down their Unesh, Criosphinx Sovereign. This might be a means of them refilling their hand. Allowing the other Unesh player to decide how many cards to give them. And yeah, unsurprisingly, they just give them all the cards. So they managed to make a land for the turn and play a Thassa's Oracle, 3 cards left in hand. Thassa's Oracle just allows them to be more selective with the cards that they're drawing into here. They're nowhere near winning with that at the moment. Now we'll go for Tails. On the Mana Crypt we lose this time. And get into a Cabal Coffers. That's really good because it counts as a swamp. Obviously Cabal Coffers and Urborg are a very good black mana combo that everyone knows about. So we'll play out the Cabal Coffers and then go in for Extra Planar Lens. And we'll exile a tapped swamp, one of the swamps that we use to go for the Extra Planar Lens. And then we generate 4 mana with Cabal Coffers. Let's go for Solemn Simulacrum just to replace the land that we just got rid of. And then we'll end the turn with Necrogen Mists, so hopefully we get rid of a decent card from the Unesh player's hand there. And that will give us a card draw with Tinybones at the end of the turn. Turn all of these zombies sideways in at the biggest threat at the moment, which I think is the Unesh player to our right. They block 2 of the zombies, 1 of them will die. And they go down to 14, so they do get another turn to deal with us. Necrogen Mists is triggering on the next Unesh player's turn. And they discard a creature, which gives us another zombie to replace the one we just lost. A Glyph Keeper was discarded. They just played a land for the turn, so obviously top decking that. And it looks like they're going in for their own commander, so all 4 commanders in play now. And let's see if the Unesh players are going to scratch each other's backs. They can't play anything out of that hand, luckily. So they'll have to wait an extra turn for their own extra planar lens. But we'll have to watch out for that Ether Eyes. Yeah, they do get all 4 cards into hand, so we need to watch out for the Ether Eyes. Because that will take our zombie army away from us. At least we're not going to get the Sphinxes swinging in at us, because they will be worried about the No Mercy. Alright, getting to Torment of Hellfire. Not the flashiest of ways to win in black. It's actually pretty eye-roll inducing. And that's coming from me, who actually has it in the deck. Unfortunately, you do need to play some Hail Mary cards like that in your decks, just in case you're at some kind of stalemate. And I think we might actually have to win this game with them, because our blue friends are getting into lots of cards, even though we are a discard deck. We're not getting into the discard effects ourselves at the moment. Karametra didn't get into anything, so just passing the turn with 0 cards in hand again. Yeah, props to all 3 players for playing this out, really, although the blue players are getting back into it, like I said. The Unesh player discards a land to give us a couple of black mana. We can't do anything with that, but they are going to shuffle their graveyard and their hand into their library and draw a fresh 7, thanks to the Midnight Clock. So they do go down a mana there, because that gets exiled, but like I said, they've got access to the cards in their graveyard again now, and getting to an 8th card during the draw step. Playing a Myriad Landscape, then going for Sphinx of War Isle, I don't know how you pronounce that. Alright, and it might just be that, yeah, they're targeting the other Unesh player again, so those 2 are just going to continue to help each other out, bumping them up to 10 cards. I'm sure they can get another Sphinx into play here. Going for a copy artifact and leaving up a single blue mana. Yeah, I was going to say, if they go for extra planar lens, they've actually got double blue there, and that's exactly what they go for. So it might be that they're holding up some counter magic. So we'll have to play cautiously around that. Alright, Quest for the Gnarlstone. We're not actually getting into many discard effects, surprisingly. But the Necrogen Mists will put a counter on the Quest for the Gnarlstone. Let's just discard the Verdant Catacombs, ready for the Crucible of Worlds if we manage to get into that. We're getting into plenty of lands, luckily. Lose the flip on Mana Crypt again, taking us down to 27. And then get into Gibbering Descent, which will be good for next turn if we discard that, because it does have a madness cost on it. And it's just more discard, which we'll need to keep up with the blue players if we don't just win this turn with the Torment of Hellfire. Let's try and bait them with the Exquisite Blood first of all. We do have a lot of zombies in play, which will gain us a lot of life, so they may well want to counter here. And yeah, they go for the Swan Song, which they've obviously gotten back into. So now, why don't we just go straight in for the Torment of Hellfire and see if anyone scoops up here. X is 10 on that one. And we do have our opponents discard cards here, so that will trigger Tinybones at the end of the turn, as well as triggering on Waste Not right now. So as it stands now, both Karametra and the Unesh player to our right can survive this one. Unesh will Yeah, the Unesh player will pretty much have to sack a few cards from their board, maybe take a bit of life here and there and discard pretty much all the cards in their hand. Karametra could just take a hit for 30, but then they lose anyway, so yeah, Karametra might just be dead here actually. Yeah, and they clearly see that, so the Unesh and the Karametra player scoop. The other Unesh player is down to 6 life, 4 cards in hand, and they have an Unesh in play. I'm sure they'll be able to play Sphinxes and refill their hand, but we'll just turn everything sideways in at them before they get a chance to do that, because luckily we've gotten into a lot of zombies this game. Waste Not has been really, really good for us. More useful to us than our actual commander, to be honest. So there we go, taking them down to -16. I am not at all sure how typical a game this would be. We pulled ahead really quickly with Mana Crypt, and then Waste Not into Mind Slicer was really good for us as well, got us into all of those zombies. Yeah, I'll have to keep trying it. Unfortunately, it's really difficult to get games with Tinybones because people like to scoop early to it. Luckily, these 3 players didn't, so big thank you to them for that. If you're all interested in seeing more Tinybones content, then be sure to leave it a thumbs up and subscribe, and leave it a comment to let me know that you want to see more from Tinybones. I will attempt to get a game going with the patrons, because as we all know, we can actually rely on the patrons to not scoop early much more often than we can at the randoms on Modo, although like I said, these guys didn't scoop up on us. Anyway, hopefully you all enjoyed the game. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.